Welcome, everybody, to the Growth Hero podcast. We're lucky to have today Ronny Brody, who is a fractional CMO and has done a lot of amazing things in his space. And we're happy to have him. Ronny, you want to tell me a little bit about what you've been doing? Tell everybody a little bit about, it's a new area for you where you became a fractional CMO just recently. Tell me a little bit about how that shift was from being a copywriter to CMO and introduce yourself.
So I redefined CMO also since I started being a CMO. So we'll save that for last. Where did I start? I started off doing websites, writing copy. And that was nice for about 1.5 years until I signed on a house and realized that there's such a thing called a mortgage. And at that point, I'm like, I need income that's repeatable. That's, not like, okay, I got a job this month, I didn't get a job the next month. So that's when I decided to start managing LinkedIn for people. I'm like, I did it for me, right? And it was moderately successful. Let me do it for others. So I did that for years, and I still do that. People still reach out for that, and I still take those jobs. That is an industry that I do not recommend to anybody to go into. And not because they'll be my competition, but because it is so hard to do. It's just so hard. You can do anything, but that is like one of the hardest things to do and to keep people happy with. Well, we could talk about that. That's actually an interesting conversation. But that turned into me getting frustrated at, like, I'm doing the LinkedIn for a company, and what about everything else? LinkedIn is just one tool in your toolbox. And I found myself advising on everything else and pushing on everything else and kind of experimenting with people. It's fun to experiment on other people's dime, right? So I would tell them, do this, do that, do the other things I saw fit. And he was able to identify what succeeded and what didn't. I'm like, okay, I think I'm a fractional CMO, so why don't I just call myself that? And then I was happily fractional CMOing until a guy stood in my office and he's like, you're just like this colorful guy that nobody knows what you do. And no one even knows what a fractional CMO is. So I'm like, I thought about that for like 24 hours. And that very day I had a call with a drug rehab. And it was interesting, it's an interesting space, and I like certain aspects about it. And I'm like, what if I become a fractional CMO for drug rehabs? Like, I wonder, let me just repeat this one client again and again and again, right? Every solopreneur has this client. They're like, why can't I just repeat you? So I called up a guy. Actually, a guy reached out to me because I had posted something about the client. I didn't name him, but I said I spoke to a drug rehab client, and he's like, you should just know that in this space, they depend on marketing for survival. You can't run a rehab without effective marketing, SEO, this stuff. Well, I'm like, hey, this may be a fit. And I did some more digging, and I found out that everyone needs marketers, and there's an enormous amount of money that they're outlaying every month. They're paying, they easily, a lot of rehab owners that own a few places they're spending $100,000 in Google Ads. I'm like, well, how do I get a slice of that?
For sure. Did you niche down? Is that all you do?
I formally said I am doing drug rehabs, and wait, it doesn't end there. And then I was like, okay, I'm a fractional CMO for drug rehabs. Turns out nobody in that space knows what a fractional CMO is. Only I knew what it was. And that's a problem. Another thing happened where I started talking to people. I pick up the phone and I start talking to people. I've done many industries in my career. I don't think any are as unique as this. This is its own ecosystem, its own universe. And what happened was that I discovered that they don't know about marketing and they don't care about marketing. There's no interest in this word marketing. They're like, can you get me more admissions? And they also say the same thing, like, get me more admissions, I'll pay you anything. And I kept hearing that and hearing it and hearing that. And finally it clicked. I'm like, I'm an admissions consultant. Now, we kind of glossed over, what qualifications do I have to be an admissions consultant, et cetera. I really am a fractional CMO. They just don't know that. So in other words, I partner with these people and I come up with strategies to increase admissions. Now, number one is simply the marketing, right? You need to rebrand because your website doesn't look like anybody should trust you. I started getting into, helping these people develop relationships with their local communities through creative marketing. So that means sending gift packets to lawyers and inviting them to the facility making a concert with some eclectic jazz group in their city who has no gigs and inviting your people to bring other people. You're inviting your patients to bring, or your clients, however you, I'm still learning how to say these words, bring their friends. So all these creative things. Now, I do not have a serious background in drug rehabs. I'm building that now. Another thing is, whatever, there's a lot of stuff. It all really goes.
Let's break down those tactics a little bit, right? So the first thing you mentioned was, I forget, what was the first thing?
Gift baskets to lawyers to tour the facility.
So that's a great example of,
Yeah.
and anyone can do this, right? So everybody has partners, especially B2B space. Everyone has partners who feed them business or who can feed them business. And people always ask, how do I create a relationship with those people? Someone actually told me that yesterday. How do I create a relationship with those people? And it's not exactly sales and it's not exactly marketing. It's kind of like the mix between the two, where you're building relationships, and people want to know what tactics work for them. Sending corporate gifts, or in this case, that doesn't sound like it's a corporate gift. It sounds like it's a lot bigger than that. You sent gift baskets. What was in the gift basket?
So I didn't actually do this. A lot of my ideas that I'm working with people on are ideas that I picked up from other owners. I'm developing my own ideas, but I'm very happy to see what worked, and I'm just replicating. So I'm just like copy pasting from people here and there. Now, not completely.
I think all marketers do that. We collect. I call it collectors. Sometimes they ask people, what do you collect? Right? Some people collect, they look at shoes all day long and they collect shoe styles. Other people's, it's building styles. Everyone has a series of collecting.
Right.
I collect marketing ideas, right? So I can spit out for you 1,000 different things that I've seen successful from other people, because that's what we collect. And we get paid for what we've collected to be able to advise people. So let me hear some of the things that you've seen successful.
Okay.
That's the whole point of this podcast, is to really take people through examples of what's been successful in other industries so that they could implement it in their.
Okay, so I'll start with the first thing that comes to mind. I spoke with a guy recently. We're not working together yet, but soon. He took over a drug rehab in the New York area. I think their capacity is about 165. It's an outpatient. 5. They were about at 50.
Wow.
That's a problem. He came in and he immediately.
You could potentially make a lot of money. So
There's a ton of profit there. I mean, an enormous amount. Insurance. Whatever. Outpatient is probably the least profitable of all. Drug rehabs, detoxes are the most profitable. But he comes in the first day. He says, "Our website looks like the guy's lawn that you're like, who lives here? He's homeless. He never comes outside. He watches TV all day. He doesn't even know what his house looks like. Like, why would I feel comfortable signing up with a facility like this?" So he goes to GCNY and he's like, "Make me a new website," and they did. And now he looks beautiful. Second thing he did not do any SEO. He didn't do any digital marketing, no social media, nothing. He just got a new website. That's it. And then he started doing these things where he made movie night in his facility, and he told his people, "Let's get some popcorn, let's get some donuts, sit down for a movie with all the patients, and please invite your friends." And they did so. And hold on, I'll tell you the numbers that he reached after 6 months. I want to tell you the number he reached after 6 months, but first I want to tell you what he did. Additionally, he put out QR codes all through his lobby, and especially where people would be congregating in a good mood, like by the coffee, whatever. And he wrote, "Please leave us a Google review. It means the world." And he left a QR code. They picked up their phone, boom, boom, boom. His Google review skyrocketed, and he's doing well in SEO without ever having done SEO because his Google reviews. Yeah. His regular SEO is nowhere where it needs to be.
Reviews is huge.
Right. He's number 3. He doesn't even know the word SEO. He's like, "What does SEO stand for?" I'm like, "Dude, you just did I'm like, it's unbelievable, right? That a rehab owner would say that."
Well, real SEO is just doing everything correctly.
David, that's not true. I mean, part of it that's true.
If you have to know the fundamentals, but I'm saying past that, link building and popularity and UX, UI, most of that is really just paying attention to your customer and taking care of them. Yeah.
It's true. It is. So he did that, and he did a number of other things. He incentivized people to get people to meetings or whatever, something like that. He went from 57 to 125 in 6 months.
Yeah, so that's huge. I find that word of mouth referrals in most industries is the number one driver of quality leads, and people don't realize by creating referral programs, or even just by asking somebody, can you refer somebody to me? How many people they could get? I have a client that they're just doing sales. All they're doing is calling existing clients, saying, "Can you refer me to one person?" Because
Right.
that is so much more effective than cold calling today. And people don't take advantage of it. I'm amazed by how people don't see it as marketing, see it as something to push. They much rather put a blanket ad in a paper. And I say that because it's easy. It's easy to throw money
Right.
at a problem versus just doing the hard work.
How many times has like a middle-aged Hasidic guy come to you and said, I have a business. We're doing, $10 million in sales annually, and we need to start marketing. You're like, start marketing? What have you been doing till now? He's like, I don't know. It's word of mouth. My neighbors, my friends. It happens all the time, you know?
There's the whole construction industry. I would say most of it doesn't do any marketing to acquire a customer. It's all word of mouth.
Right. Especially. So that's what, this is I really work at 3 pillars. There's the common sense stuff you can get from your own people. And rehab owners have told me the idea that you're selling me that I can increase admissions from my own people without outlaying, you're not selling me a $50,000 idea. That is an unbelievable attraction to me. So I'm basically a consultant. I work with them. I pitch the idea, and then I ideas never are implemented. You have to push and push and push and get the right people on board. So I tell people my pitch is sort of like, I come in, I give you the idea. I'm a creative innovator in getting you new admissions. I make sure that I push and ensure that it actually gets done. And whoever I need to push, I'll push. And I'll call them and I'll harass them, and we'll get this set up intelligently and beautifully, and everyone benefits. That's the first pillar. It's like that from the people themselves. The second pillar is community.
Glossing over the idea of getting things done. There's EOS. There's so many programs that put so much importance on it because that's the biggest challenge. Ideas are cheap. It's the guy who's gonna take the ball and run to the finish line who's gonna implement.
Right.
It's so important to be able to get things done and execute fast.
I can't agree with you more. And a lot of times, the motivation comes from the fact that they're paying me. Like, you're paying me. Why not listen to me? Your money's not going anywhere if you're not going to do this.
Yeah, but there's plenty of people they could pay consultants out there that just talk and don't implement, don't get things done. So it's super important. And I think it's I just saw somebody who said that his edge of how he's better than everyone else is he reiterates fast. He's doing, instead of one thing at a time, he's doing 5 things. He's always working on implementing more things to test, more things to try. And it's so true because marketing is not a one thing execution. It's a channel testing game, and people don't see it that way. But if you actually saw it that way, it's just a matter of how can we reiterate, how can we learn, fail faster, so that we could know what's going to work. And hiring people that have done it for other people just speeds that up a little bit because you know where to dig, what to do.
Right. Yep. And it really, you know what I mean? EOS, exists to make these things happen. I don't know the first thing about EOS other than they talk about implementers a lot and visionaries and all these words. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like that therapy, IFS. They have like names for everybody, I was once talking to somebody and he's like, oh, damn, that's a firefighter. I'm like, excuse me? He's like, oh, sorry. I'm in the middle of doing therapy on myself. I'm like, okay. But I can't make things happen in offices. You know what I mean? If they're going to be sluggish, then okay, I'll be like, okay, you're not implementing. Goodbye. I'm sadly, I'm unnecessary. But then the second thing is community building, because these are local businesses. They're hyper local. And when communities see them as a resource, they will send their people there. And people, again, rehabs don't always realize this. I mean, it's extremely obvious and simple, but you're here to serve a community. Are you integrating in that community? Are you making a weekend concert with mental health support sponsored by your recovery center? What are you doing? Are you bringing donuts to the Chamber of Commerce? Not with a sell, just like, hi, I want you to know we're in town and we appreciate you. And together we're keeping this community safe. Yeah, you don't believe a word of that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. A lot of people do. A lot of people are very altruistic, but even if you don't, who cares? So developing local relationships and becoming a resource for the community. And again, this doesn't apply to an Amazon business. Obviously, it's not local, right? The local business.
Well, I would say the fundamental applies to everybody because marketing branding is all association, right? So what are you doing that associates you with what you want to be known for within your community, right? So what your example is, it's a local community and you're doing something that, movie night for a certain type of people. that creates an association that you're the guys in town who work on this problem, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
it suits them. But Amazon's really the same thing, right? You create the same association for the type of products you do, the programs. I would say that Good Grips, as an example of a product that they make, has an association that they're going to have that rubberized black and white grip made by OXO. If they made a pencil, you know what it's going to look like, because there's an association in our mind that is so strong that we know that it creates an expectation. So branding is the expectation it sets. What he was doing and what you're describing is he's doing something that creates an association. We take care of people. We're innovative. We're welcoming. All the things that you want to be associated with. When people think of a drug rehab, you're scared, right? You're scared that what goes on there, who knows? Maybe they're not so open. Maybe they're not so transparent. Maybe they're not so warm. Maybe it's not so inviting. But when you provide these things and people could see that there's an association, you're inviting the public in to see what goes on. That means that you're not afraid what people see. You're not having locked doors. You're not having people screaming around, right? That's already one thing out of the way. Then you're inviting, you're welcoming, even if people are there for 10 minutes, but they feel like, oh, these guys are nice people. They're doing this, they care about the community. They have a name. They're not afraid to open up a little bit. That alone creates that association that all the competitors don't have. That puts them already at the top of the list to be referred.
Exactly. You say that so well. I want to hire you to do sales. On that topic, your orange chairs sit in my mind as creativity.
On purpose. Actually, some of these chairs are all like ripped up a little bit.
Yeah. I see your placed right there to block it.
I can't find these chairs. The manufacturer doesn't sell them anymore. And I'm like, I'd rather keep the chairs and have my association until I could find the right chairs. Because if I showed up with white chairs, nobody would know who I am anymore.
Yeah, it's branded,
Yeah.
And it's simple. It's a creative, it gives the impression of creativity and innovation.
Right. And consistency. In other words, because you've seen it a million times in my videos, you already associate me with the color.
Right, exactly. What color is your logo? It's orange, right? I'm assuming.
Blue and orange. Yeah.
So that's the two things. There's community and there's the people. And the third thing is just traditional digital marketing where we do a rebrand, we do social media, we do SEO, we do all this stuff. And all the necessary components to ensuring you're found online and looking good. And if somebody, in theory, if I come into a center and I do all these three things, again, there's always the question of competition and there's always a question of, internal operations not being up to par. You will succeed beyond your wildest imaginations. And, the amount of money you spend on that is immaterial.
Right. You hit your goals and you get your.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing now. It's far beyond anything I've ever done in my career. It's much more comprehensive and it's much more fun. It allows me to be absurdly creative and push the limits. And when I pitch somebody a crazy idea, that, when I was doing LinkedIn, for example, how crazy can I be in another person's name? My job isn't to be crazy and creative and interesting. My job is to channel you correctly. And I'm sorry, but you're boring. So my job is to be boring, right? I've done ghostwriting for women before. The parameters of what I have to fit is so narrow. I can't be.
You can't say this. You can't say that.
But you can only say one thing. You can only say what they would say, and you just have to say it a little better and write it a little better and hit the kind of the interest points that LinkedIn gobbles up. And it never allowed me creativity like this, and that's why this is it's so much fun because I'm playing.
They say, I think I learned this from one of these EOS implementers. They show that there's different types of genius. And you have the idea person, and then the person who the discerner, the person who decides on if the idea is good or not. Then you have the people who rally and the people who support others. Us marketers, we have to be the person to provide the idea. We don't have to be the person who decides on the idea if to do it or not, which allows us to be a little bit nutty, right? So we could go ahead and push the envelope and bring this crazy idea where the client has to discern, okay, am I willing to do that? And most of the time they tamper it down to what they're willing to do, but allows us to be a little bit crazy in terms of push the envelope of what's possible. And that's why sometimes a third party is so good, because they themselves would never let themselves get to that point, because they're trying to figure out in the world of practice. And first you have to go into the world of imagination and then tone it back into making it doable. And that's very hard for people to do both.
You're really smart. Why do you need me on here?
Because I only have one viewpoint. And you're bringing a totally new viewpoint. Total new tactics.
I can never
Thank you.
express the way you express these things. Like, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm like shaking my head. I'm like, you said that really well.
It's not my ideas. I collected them from other people.
The way you lay that out is very perfect. I
Thank you.
imagine that you have good sales calls.
Yeah. Well, you have to. It's part of every business owner becomes a salesperson. I used to think that I was bad at sales, and I used to tell people I don't do sales. I don't go over strangers. I'm not into that. And somewhere along the way, I realized that I'm good at sales because I'm trying to help the guy, and good sales aligns what you could do for them with what they need.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like some manipulation where you're trying to convince somebody. It's just like, can I explain something clearly enough for you that you can understand that you need it? And if it helps you and you have a reputation and you can deploy it, then people buy it and people like it.
Yes. I sat down. The guy I sat down with before you today was Menashe Friedman.
He's great.
This is 2.0 today.
Maybe we'll get him on.
You should definitely. You're gonna get him on. I just told him he should start a podcast. He's like, what am I gonna say? I'm like, Menashe, you don't shut up. What do you mean? What are you gonna say? You tell stories constantly. You don't let anyone else talk. You're always telling stories. Just keep telling your stories. Just do them on podcasts. And you don't have people eating on your head.
Yeah, so actually,
he's just an amazing person. Some people you meet.
So is he your sales coach?
What?
Is he your sales coach?
He is my coach, yes. And I pay him.
People always ask, are coaches worth it? Do coaches really help you?
Coaches are worth it because when you lay out $5,000 a month or $4,000 a month for something, you're like, if you don't follow through with that, you will kick yourself so hard. You gave away a significant amount of your income to somebody. And if you're not following up on that and driving on all cylinders, you are the world's greatest idiot. That's what drives me. If I wouldn't, there was a time that we had a relationship where I managed his LinkedIn and he coached me. It did not work out.
Because there was no skin.
There was no skin in the game. I'm doing his LinkedIn. Okay, I could do LinkedIn in my sleep, especially from a guy who has so much value to offer. I came to him and I said, Menashe, I need to pay you. He's like, why? And he knew perfectly well why. He knew exactly why. Like, because I let you slip. I don't know. You're here available to me and I'm not calling you and you're basically free. And I asked him, could you do it for a certain amount every month? And he's like, nope. Like, we were free.
I'll do it, but not.
Yeah. And I'm like, more? He's like, nope. And he names a number. I'm like, well, that's like impossible. He's like, okay, goodbye. Essentially, I did it in the end. He asked me, are you willing to do whatever it takes to get to this place? What would it mean to you if you got to your income goals? And I said, it'll mean the world. It will mean this, it will mean that. He's like, okay, we will do everything humanly possible to get there. And this is what it takes. And he's just, I don't know, just dealing with that, like, just gives me a new idea of what sales is. I never could have imagined what sales was. I never could have considered myself a salesman, a different life, not this one. He's amazing. The way he teaches by just being, I'm just amazed by him.
Very cool.
For sure, get him on.
Will do. You'll make an intro after this.
You've never talked to him?
I have talked to him, but you'll make the intro.
Yes, we will. It's a show.
Okay, so you're coming from a copywriter's viewpoint. Do you find that you see opportunities from a copy's perspective, or by now you've already, shifted your viewpoint?
So I never stop seeing things from a copywriter perspective, and I have to say that I'm still a copywriter at heart, and everything I do is really influenced by that. I really, I wrote a website recently for an ABA company. I still, I do a lot of ABA and I do a lot of copywriting still. It's, for some reason, the more I got into drug rehabs, the more ABA comes my way. It's they're cousins and no one can figure out how. But anyway, everyone pretends that they're under the same umbrella because we call them behavioral health. They have nothing to do with each other outside that. In essence, they are the same because you're trying to teach behaviors, but helping people overcome addiction and helping kids with autism is wildly.
They tend to operate very similar. The way they market, the way that they grow. I'm saying it's a little bit of a similar space.
There is, but okay, but that's a different conversation. But what I started off the website, I had the hero section. I wrote what wouldn't you do for your child, and then I had a subhead that said something like ABA therapy that's effective and compassionate. I forgot what I wrote. And then right away, the next step of the website, and I tend to do this a lot, I went onto Reddit and I looked up parents with kids with ASD. I'm in the ABA space, so I say ASD. autism in English. I said, I put in Reddit in the search bar, I have a child with ASD, a child with autism. And what followed was heartbreaking and heartrending letters, posts, and this and that and the other thing. And I simply screenshotted, very emotive, emotional, very, very provocative statements by parents. And I just put that at the beginning of the site. And I don't do the design, but my intention was to tell the designer to do, to put like a quotation mark. Obviously, it's a quote. And the guy I'm working with now just did not understand. He said, "What are you doing? Like, nobody understands what you're putting those for." And I'm like, you have to understand, these people are coming to the website, and the first thing they see is a quote out of their own mouth. And these aren't my quotes. I can never manufacture a quote that well. And I did the same thing with the drug rehab. We just launched the site, and it's just they're talking. For me, it's always about copy. Like, I think of everything through a copy lens. Copy means you are meeting somebody where they're at and guiding them towards the solution with everything needed along the way, and kind of overcoming objections and providing proof and all that.
So that's so interesting because we use that for landing pages, and we'll create multiple variants of landing pages based on the keyword that they're looking for the same reason, to make sure that people feel like, I know I came to somebody who understands what I'm looking for, right? So if you put their search term mimic back to them in a different wording, then they're like, okay, I came to the right place. And you're really doing that to the next level. You're saying, emotionally, we understand you. We're speaking your language. Automatically, that you have that bond, that if
Exactly.
you can understand my problem, then you can solve it. Because if you can't understand the problem, how are you ever going to solve it?
Exactly.
I love that.
You should know, I don't know if I should say this publicly, but when I write a website for not an, I only write websites that are like an emotional appeal, because that's simply my strength. I'm telling you what, I cry when I write. I'm writing a website,
Wow.
I'm crying, and I'm like, I really put myself into their shoes. I can tell you, I don't know another copywriter who cries when he writes.
Are you very empathetic in general? Like, you're very emotive?
I can't stand people.
Great tip to go do your market research in Reddit. That's a great one. I really rely on those two things: Reddit and for these type of communities, and reviews. I'll go to Amazon reviews, see what the person wrote about the product, and then I'll go see what else he reviewed, what other products he bought, just to get a feel for what type of person he is.
You're taking that to the next level. That's genius.
Yeah, if you really get to understand what they're like, what they buy, what they consume, your perspective of who they are becomes a lot richer and deeper. So I think
Get that to that.
But now do it on Reddit. Find the person, click on them, read the other comments that they wrote about in other areas of their life, and you'll get a whole new facet of them. Of, oh, this guy owns a gun, because he wants to protect his family, and like, you'll get so much more color.
That's, I mean, it really is cheating in market research. Total, it's unbelievable. What you just described is a way to take that even farther. But really, when I got into this space of drug rehabs, I knew nothing about it. I have no background in addiction or anything. Spirituality, yes, but not mental health or rehab. And I spent a month and read it.
It's better that way than to go do drugs and then go to rehab and go through the process yourself.
I didn't say I didn't do drugs. I said I wasn't in recovery. So yeah, Reddit is really, it's a cesspool, and it's also an amazing, amazing place to get really front and center in someone else's head. I mean, the things that I've read, they changed my whole perspective of everything. I mean, how can you?
Sure.
Every single day, I wasn't the same person. Some of these things are incredibly hard to read. I mean, I've read things about people who, and again, anyone who has any background in addiction knows it. A guy was making $500K a year, and then one day he's waking up at the side of the road. His wife has left him. His house is gone. He doesn't have a job. His kids are gone. His leg has to get amputated. I mean, it's beyond anything that I've ever encountered before. One of my somebody I learned a lot from, a guy named David Hawkins. He's not alive anymore. Wrote a bunch of books. He's probably the most profound writer on spirituality today, and healing and addiction and all this stuff. He was an extremely high level person. He was, he had all these kinds of visions. And if people wouldn't hate me for it, I would say he had Ruach HaKodesh. You can't say that because he's a guy and whatever. Okay, you can edit that out. But I really do believe that. And he worked with addiction primarily. And here you have like the one of the greatest people alive, one of the greatest spiritual people alive, and he was working with these people who had no hope. Nobody had hope for them. No one loved them. They were disgusting people in every single way, and he saw the godliness in them, and he chose to work with those people. And it's very easy to say this, but to really look someone in the eye, someone who threw up all over their shirt and they didn't change their shirt, and say, I want to help you, it's like, it's unbelievable. There's a lot of profit in the space, and it's like, it's great, and it's also a little sad. There's so much real life waiting to be met here. It's, even the people in recovery, they're not always people you want to hang out with.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah, but they're doing great things, and people really. I know guys like who've been through it and changed their life.
Yeah, it's amazing, by the way. These people are fighters like no one else, because when you hit rock bottom, you're like in the position where you do anything. I'll do anything to make my life better. How many people do you find like that? Most people are like, okay, I coasted to here. I'm on a conveyor belt. I've been supported. This, that, and other thing. I'll get a job. Someone will help me. These people stare death in the face, and a lot more than death. But they stare existence in the face, and they say, there's nowhere else to get but up. This is actually when I was writing the website, my first website for Rehab, I realized that these people, it's very interesting that, some people are forced into recovery centers, not into recovery because they're forced there by legal. There are a lot of those. In the Medicaid facilities, there are a lot of people, they have no interest in being there. And a lot of people come there because it's the winter. The famous guy who used to get arrested every winter. It's the winter. Where am I going to live? My bridge is unavailable. So it's like a vast majority of the people there are just sick. This famous line, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. They really are. And they're like, I can't like hide my fascination with a person who's reached the end and says, I will do anything to improve my life. And anything really means anything. No matter how long it takes, no matter what it takes out of me, I'm gonna fix myself. And it's just an amazing. I think those people are truly great.
Super powerful stuff. Okay, before we close off, if you had to highlight one or two things that any business owner could really do, doesn't necessarily have to cost a lot of money, but could give them a real win in their business, where would you tell them to look?
Work with David Koenigsberg. After that, become a marketer. Be smart, and you will save yourself. You will be inestimably enriched if you truly become a marketer. That doesn't mean you have to do marketing, but take a class, take a course on SEO, understand copywriting, understand the different things so that you can put the right people in place. Because you really face an uphill battle putting the right people in place if you don't really understand them. If you understand the things, you can knock out 9 out of 10 people. And unfortunately, most business owners tell me they've been burned by marketers. If you become a marketer, spend a month, studying marketing, you will be so empowered to get the right talent on board and not get screwed and not get angry, because you get the right people in place and they'll do the right thing for you. That's really my advice.
If people want to reach out to you, where do they find you?
Well, LinkedIn's a good place to start. My website, unfortunately, is not available yet. I own the domain. We're getting there. LinkedIn's the best place.
Okay.
Or you can leave my number. My pleasure.
Yeah. Pleasure having you on, and we'll continue to follow your career.
I hope it was mildly interesting.
I found it very interesting.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.